Hey traders, welcome back to another daily profit and loss recap video. Today is Friday, July 21st. The market has just closed for the day and for the week, and today I was able to lock in $707 in profits. And in this video, we're going to break down my two trades that I placed today, and we're going to talk about my thought process behind each of those trades so that hopefully you can take something from my trading and apply it to your own. So with all of that being said, the first trade that I want to talk about from today is going to be with the stock CEI. Also, very quickly before moving on, I want to mention that yesterday on Thursday, if you were waiting for the daily profit and loss recap video, my apologies, but I didn't do any trading for the day. I had some things to take care of outside of trading, and although I was in the chat room for most of the morning, I didn't want to have to worry about being stuck in a trade while I was away from my desk. Okay, but moving on to my trades today. With CEI, we were seeing it had a nice spike up this morning in pre-market, but kind of like CEI typically does, it did not originally hold its gains very well. It came straight back down, had a big sell-off from that spike up, and kind of just started to fade down into the market open. Now, I posted over in the Market Master group that I was keeping CEI on a watch for a potential dip and rip setup. I wasn't interested in buying this as an opening range breakout, and I wasn't really interested in buying this pre-market while it was spiking up and kind of chasing it into the highs. I would rather wait for it to start dipping down and closing in on that 90-cent area originally, because that is what was going to set this trade up for a solid risk and reward and make it a trade that was worth taking. So as the market opens, it starts to pull back. I posted pretty much right away that I was buying the opening dip for a quick bounce in CEI, and then it continued to fade a bit. At that time, it was trading at about 85 cents per share. It faded down a little bit lower. I added some more around 83 cents. And at that point, I was risking down to about 79 cents. So I got my average price down to 84 cents or so, built into a nice size position of 12,000 shares at that price. And again, worst case scenario here is that I was going to cut losses at around 79 cents, losing 4 cents per share, which would have been a loss of just under $500. So the point that I'm trying to make is that, keep in mind that every time I'm getting into a trade, I have at least a general idea of where I'm risking off of. I know based on usually some basic technical analysis where the stock is going to start really moving against me or where the trade setup is kind of no longer valid. So that's going to be the point where I like to typically take my loss on the trade and just move on. And once you have that level determined, you can then build your position off of it. So that means that you would only add into that position a certain amount of shares so that if it does end up reaching that risk level that you have in mind, you're not going to take a loss that's way out of your comfort zone, and you're going to be able to bounce back. All right, so anyway, with all of that being said, we can see that it kind of just starts to pull back at the market open, consolidates a bit. Remember, I posted that I was adding some in the 83 cent area. I got my average down to just under 85 cents. It finally starts to recover out of that little consolidation zone, pushes back up. And keep in mind, at the time, volume was still relatively low, at least compared to the volume that started to come in later on in the morning. So I started to lock in a portion of my profits once it started to push up into the opening range highs up here, right at about 90 cents. And then I am a bit ashamed to say that I locked in the remainder of my profits as it spiked up here into the VWAP. I ended up with a total of $727 in profits on that trade, which obviously is nothing really to complain about, but when you take a look at the bigger picture here, you can see that obviously it ended up running all the way up to a high of $1.24. That happened only about 30 minutes or so later. So one of the things that I really need to work on and that I've been mentioning over and over again in these videos is that I need to be a little bit more patient with my winning trades. Although I am overall a profitable trader and I'm fortunate enough to be able to day trade for a living, obviously I'm still only human and there are things that I'm constantly trying to improve on myself. And the best way for me to go from averaging maybe about $1,000 a day in profits to, $2,000 a day in profits or $5,000 a day in profits is to really focus on letting those winners outweigh those losers even more than they already do. Okay, so anyway, that was my trade with CEI, and that was kind of the lesson that I took from it. Moving on to the second trade, this is going to be with the stock ICAD. ICAD was a little bit of a tricky setup this morning. If we take a look down here at the daily chart, we can see that over the past week, this has had a really solid spike up from the low twos all the way up to a high of $3.97. And it's kind of just been chopping and trading around for the last couple of days in the $3.50 area. So yesterday in the Market Master Group trade plans, we post trade plans every single night to help our traders take on the market the following day. And the trade plans for ICAD were that this was a big runner earlier in the week, and it was coming back into play for Friday now that there's a strong daily setup. What I was looking for in order to buy into this setup was that I was going to have a nice morning pullback or a little bit of a sell-off at the market open. I was going to buy into that sell-off, risking off of the $3.20 area. And ideally from there, we were going to see a red to green move, and it was going to start squeezing up to $4 or higher. So for the most part, I guess things kind of went as planned. It started to pull back at the market open. I bought into this pullback in the low 340s, pulled down to a low of $3.30. Like I mentioned in the trade plans, my risk level was going to be at about $3.20. So there was still some room for it to continue to pull back before I would end up cutting losses on the trade. But it did end up eventually having a nice reversal, started to push back above VWAP. It was trading on really thin volume, so once it kind of started to just chop around the VWAP here, I was already in the trade for much longer than I would have liked to have been, and I had a very small position in it, so I ended up kind of just taking a very small loss on this of $19.89. It got all the way back up to my break-even price, actually ended up pushing a little bit into the profit zone, but once it started to pull back once again to the VWAP, that's where I sold and cut losses on this trade. Later on into the close, it did end up finally pushing up and closing just above the previous day's closing price. So if we look at the bigger picture here, this is definitely a setup that I will continue to watch early next week. We can see there's a little bit of an inverse head and shoulders pattern actually starting to form, with this area here being the left shoulder, this being the head, and this being the right shoulder. And then of course we have the neckline resistance, which is probably right around here in the $3.70 range. So if it can maybe start pushing back above that level early next week, this can definitely be set up for another nice push up to new highs. But for today, it really wasn't a trade that had much follow through, and there wasn't much potential there with that setup. Okay, so all in all, I ended up with $707 in profits today. Really quickly, before wrapping up the video, I want to give a quick shout out to Kane. Kane has been in the chat for a while. I can see the consistency starting to build, and he was able to end the week now with 8 solid, profitable green days in a row. I, of course, love to see it. The goal, after all, of the Market Master Group is to help our team of traders consistently profit until they no longer need our help and they're self-sufficient traders on their own. So it's great to see some traders being well on their way to that goal, and 8 days of consistent profits is definitely a great sign. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this video. If you want to hear about these stocks that I'm trading in real time, as well as work with our team of traders here in the Market Master Group, get access to our day trade and swing trade alerts, our detailed trade plans, our live custom scanner streams, and so on and so forth. All of that, again, can be found in the Market Master Group, and there's going to be a link down below in the description for you to get signed up. But regardless, thank you again for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck with your trading.